warships loaded with firepower, but empty trays below deck. You shouldn't be running out of food, yet sailors say they're hungry all the time. Mail halted, morale sinking, supply lines fraying mid-war. In a conflict of precision and power, how did logistics become the weakest link, and what breaks next? Alarming accounts are emerging from US warships deployed to the Middle East, where service members are reportedly facing food shortages and disrupted supply lines amid the ongoing Iran conflict. Families of troops aboard vessels like the USS Tripoli and USS Abraham Lincoln say meals appear sparse and inconsistent. Photos shared with families show trays with minimal portions, small servings of meat, limited vegetables, and little fresh produce. Concerns have escalated as communication from deployed personnel suggests rationing may already be underway. One Marine's father, speaking to USA Today, described deteriorating conditions aboard ship.
We have the strongest military in the world. You shouldn't be running out of food, and you shouldn't be able to get mail on the ship. The one thing we had over our adversaries, we fed our people.
Beyond food, another critical issue has emerged: mail. The US Postal Service, in coordination with the Military Postal Service Agency, has suspended deliveries to 27 military zip codes across the Middle East. Officials say the disruption is due to airspace closures and logistical constraints tied to the conflict.
The Postal Service and the Military Postal Service Agency have suspended deliveries as of the beginning of April due to airspace closures and other logistical impacts from the ongoing conflict. Mail already in transit when the suspension took effect is being held in secure postal service or military facilities for future delivery once service resumes.
US Army spokesperson Major Travis Shaw said the suspension remains open-ended, with no immediate timeline for restoration.
The suspension is in effect until further notice. Resumption of mail service is contingent upon the reopening of airspace by civil authorities and the area commander's evaluation of regional transportation and distribution stability.
The suspension has left hundreds of care packages stranded, many containing essential hygiene supplies, medicine, and food sent by families. In some cases, families have spent thousands of dollars on packages that remain undelivered. Service members themselves describe growing uncertainty.
Morale is going to be at an all-time low.
Community groups across the United States have mobilized to support deployed troops, but their efforts are now stalled. Karen Erskine Valentine, a pastor in West Virginia, described reports from sailors aboard the Abraham Lincoln.
The food is tasteless, and there's not nearly enough, and they're hungry all the time. That kind of breaks your heart. I put out the announcement that they were in need of love and nourishment. Within 2 days, I had 18 boxes of stuff.
Despite these concerns, the Pentagon has not publicly addressed reports of food shortages aboard deployed vessels. Experts note that disruptions to military logistics are not unprecedented, but the scale of the current suspension is unusual.
There are always extenuating circumstances. It's far more complex than domestic mail.
USPS historian Steve Kochersberger said in a statement emailed to USA Today,
Interruptions and delays in mail service have been a part of every American conflict since the Revolutionary War. Communications and supply networks that work well during peacetime are invariably disrupted during wartime.
As the conflict stretches on, US naval deployments are also reaching historic limits, with the USS Gerald R. Ford surpassed 295 days at sea, its longest deployment since the Cold War. From rationed meals to stalled supply chains, the strain of sustained conflict is now being felt far from the front lines, raising questions about readiness, logistics, and the human cost of prolonged deployment. Just over 3 weeks after limping out of the Middle East with a fire still under investigation, the USS Gerald R. Ford is heading back to the line of fire. The US Navy announced on April 2nd that the supercarrier had completed repairs at the port of Split in Croatia and was ready to sail, closing out a 5-day stop that followed an earlier assessment visit to Suda Bay in Greece. The Navy was characteristically bullish about the ship's readiness.
Gerald R. Ford remains poised for full mission tasking in support of national objectives in any area of operation.
What that statement leaves out is rather more telling than what it includes. The fire that forced the carrier out of the theatre in mid-March burned for up to 30 hours, longer than the notorious USS Forrestal fire of 1967, which raged for around 24 hours. Iran had claimed responsibility for the incident, and on March 28th, US President Donald Trump appeared to lend the claim unexpected credibility, saying Iran had hit the world's largest aircraft carrier from 17 angles. The Pentagon moved swiftly to dismiss both accounts, maintaining the blaze was an onboard accident with no connection to enemy action. What is not disputed is the scale of the damage. More than 600 sailors lost their bunks. The crew was unable to do laundry, and washing was reportedly airlifted to other ships. And analysts who examined the damage were blunt about what the Croatia repairs actually covered.
They are probably mostly repairs to the laundry and surrounding berthing spaces, laundry equipment, insulation, lighting, internal bulkheads. The repairs likely don't include the launch and recovery systems, propulsion systems, or combat systems.
In other words, the Ford is going back to war with its combat systems untouched, but its crew is still sleeping in a ship that has not been fully restored from a fire that took over a day to put out. The timing raises harder questions. By March 30th, the Ford had already been at sea for 279 days, deployed since June 2025, pushing towards the post-Vietnam War record of 294 days. Clark noted that under normal circumstances, a carrier deploys for one 7-month period every 3 years, with a maintenance window of 6 months to a year upon return. The Ford has blown past that schedule entirely. The ship also still requires deck modifications before it can operate the F-35C, meaning it returns to the fight with that capability gap unaddressed. The Ford has been here before. The question now is simply how long before it needs to leave again. The United States is weighing one of the most complex and dangerous military operations in modern warfare. A plan to seize Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium buried deep beneath bombed nuclear sites. According to officials familiar with the discussions, President Donald Trump was briefed in recent days on a proposal that would involve deploying troops deep inside Iranian territory, excavating nuclear material, and airlifting it out under hostile conditions. At the center of the plan is roughly 450 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, just short of weapons grade. The material is believed to be buried under rubble at key sites near Isfahan and Natanz, following US airstrikes last year. Retrieving it would be anything but straightforward. Military planners envision a large-scale operation involving hundreds, potentially thousands, of troops. Personnel, which would include civilian nuclear specialists, would live in a small base instead of a clandestine site. And after forces completed the arduous task of blasting through the rubble to collect uranium, planes would need to take off from a purpose-built runway to carry the material away, the Post reported.
This would be one of, if not the largest, most complicated special operations in history. It's a major risk to the force.
The operation would unfold in stages. First, US forces would need to suppress Iranian air defenses and secure a perimeter. Then, specialized teams would move in to clear debris, cut through protective layers of concrete and shielding, and locate sealed uranium cylinders stored deep underground. Each step carries significant risk. The uranium itself is highly radioactive and potentially unstable if disturbed. Teams would need protective gear, radiation sensors, and constant decontamination protocols. At the same time, they would be operating under the threat of Iranian missiles, drones, and ground forces.
There's a lot of risks associated with it. This is a very high order of complexity. There likely will be casualties. But this is the problem set for U.S. Special Operations Forces. It's what we do. We have people who are specifically trained to go into these types of environments.
However, in a stunning reversal of his rationale for the Iran war, President Donald Trump has claimed that he doesn't care about Iran's enriched uranium stockpile.
That's so far underground, I don't care about that. We'll always be watching it by satellite.
But in the event of the raid taking place, experts suggest that the mission's scale far exceeds typical US special operations, shifting from swift raids to a prolonged deployment lasting weeks or months. It would require establishing a forward operating base inside Iran, complete with logistics, security, and nuclear handling infrastructure. Extraction poses major risks, with aircraft vulnerable during takeoff under potential Iranian fire. While the objective remains preventing Iran from advancing its nuclear program, some experts favor involving the International Atomic Energy Agency under a ceasefire. The White House says no decision has been made. If executed, the plan would mark a major escalation, turning an air campaign into a high-risk ground operation.